Lizzie here. Today we're going to show you how to make Norah, and Norah is this beautiful shopper bag that I've got in front of me here. The straps are really long, so you can adjust those if you want to. It just means that it's a little bit off screen, but you can see what it's like. We've got a beautiful patchwork front to it. These shapes have all been created using my autumn leaf template, which is still available on my website. But the template is already part of the pattern. It's one of the paper pieces in there that you can just cut out and use. And for a small project like this, then it's perfectly acceptable to use the paper template. That's why we put it in there for you. So it's a little bit of patchwork. The actual bag itself is completely unlined except for the front, and the front only sort of is there to cover up the patchwork behind. Otherwise it would look a little scruffy. So we've lined the front, but we haven't lined anything else. It's all as you can see. Nice long straps, as I said right at the beginning, so it'll easily go over your shoulder. Loads of stuff can be put in here. It's a really good size, so if you were thinking about Christmas shopping or shopping any time of year, popping down to the supermarket, it's absolutely perfect. So we're going to get along now and start making Norah. So I'll just pop her here. The other two projects are sitting behind me, and they are nailer. So we've got the one which was for the video, which is this one, and the one that was on the pattern, which is this one. So you've got two beautiful bags for this month of November 2022. If you're seeing this after that, all of these patterns and the videos are on the website. So just pop along to lizzycurtis.com and have a little browse. There's hundreds of patterns on there now. So yeah, so this is the pattern that you'll get. It's very, very comprehensive. Now, interestingly, this bag pattern was created originally by Gemma Joy, and we acknowledge her on the front of the pattern. So this was a design by Gemma Joy, who I asked to use the template to see what designs she could come up with, and this is one of the projects. I had lots and lots and lots of projects given to me by our admin team using the template. So the original one was by Gemma Joy. The one we see today, and the one that's obviously on the pattern here, was recreated for us by Catherine Morgan, and she is obviously our fabulous super duper pattern editor and sewer extraordinaire, and she helped me put this together for everybody for November. So I hope you like it. It's a lovely pattern. It's nice and easy, not too difficult, a little bit of patchwork to do. Listen, and the other thing is, don't forget, if your points don't match, I'm not looking, so you no need to worry about that. We haven't put any wadding in here, so we haven't done any quilting, but of course you can if you want to. You can change it to suit your requirements. If you want to line the whole thing, you can if you want to, but we only thought, because we've used a lightweight canvas material, we thought that was plenty enough stability for a nice shopping bag. So if we start looking at the overhead straight away, let's just pop the pattern out of the way. I'm going to try and follow it as best I can. I say that, and I very rarely do. I start off with good intentions. So this is the template. I'll give it a little flash there for you so you can see it. I'll just use one of my darker pieces. Maybe you'll see it better on there. So you can see the shape of it. I've got my special grip tape on there as well, so it stops it from really sliding. It'll still slide a little, but not as much as if you didn't have the tape on. So it's worth keeping that tape when it's sent to you. Or, like I say, you can use the paper pattern that's in the pattern itself. So if we just move that to one side, all you're going to do is cut the right amount of pieces that is said in the pattern, and I've already recreated 1, 2, 3, 4 rows, and we need a 5th row. Not too bad with matching up the points. I just love how it looks so far. It's very, very pretty. It almost looks like a winter tree there in the middle, doesn't it, as it stands now? But we've got the next row to do. So when you come to put the pattern when you put the patchwork together, try and follow the design. So I'm just looking over my shoulder there at the design on the front of the pattern, just to make sure I'm getting that right. If you've got directional fabric, you might want to consider obviously the direction that it's all going in, but that's my next row. So you can see how it's pieced together. And you can also see by using the template, let me just bring it in again, where these shapes have come from. Let me get my dark piece of fabric so we can see. So in fact, if I hold it there, that's probably a lot better. If you can hear aeroplane noises, I live near an American base and they fly over all the time. I don't mind, I hope you don't. So there is our template there. So you can see how the shapes have been cut. So depending on whether you use right side of fabric or the wrong side of the fabric will depend on how this is cut. This has been cut with right side facing, whereas this one has been cut with wrong side facing. But in actual fact, this is a pair. If you put them together, they are wrong sides together, a pair. So you can sort of think ahead of the game and perhaps cut two or four at a time. The square comes in this part here, so you've got that square there clearly marked out on the template, again on the paper pattern as well. And the little half square triangles are this section here, and I've demonstrated this many times, and there is a YouTube video on there to show you how to cut using the autumn leaf template. So refer to that if you're not too sure, but it's very self-explanatory when you come to put it together. So we're going to put this last row together now. What you need to remember is a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Try to stick to that as best you can, because it will alter the size of your front piece. So try and stick with that. I have opened up all my seams. I'm rather into that at the minute. I just need to press that one open. I do like how it distributes the fabric nicely. Although we're not quilting, I still think it's nice to distribute the fabric. So let's bring the machine in. There we go, lovely. And so we're going to start piecing them. So the first pieces we're going to use are the actual whole piece, the whole autumn leaf shape, and a half square triangle. And like I said before, just make sure that you're using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And you want the stitch length on about 2.4, 2.5 for this stage. Just switching my iron on there because I want to iron my seams as I go. Now you don't have to do this, but I think for me it's quite important. Even though I've just stitched those two pieces together, you can just see them there. I like to open them up, and I like to open the seam up. You can sort of press the seam before you actually open it up if you want to. I'll leave all that for you to decide. There's no right or wrong in my book, so whatever you want to do is fine by me. So that's the first one, so you can see how beautiful it looks, lovely and flat, very even. So just flip it over, and the next one we're going to put on is the square, so you can see how that looks. So right sides together, and I'm doing these in order. So some seams will look the same, some will look slightly different. So 1/4 inch seam allowance again. And then again, if we look on the overhead, you can see how that's looking now. Not too bad. So you can set that seam if you want. We'll set it, might as well. And then let's just turn it. We'll just open up that seam straight away. If you want to press your fabric to the dark side or whatever you've been taught to do, then please do that if you're more comfortable with that. Please don't be persuaded by me to do anything different to what you've been taught. So now we're going to add the 4th piece. So you can see how easy this is to put together. It's just a case of remembering your 1/4 inch seam allowance. Buy a 1/4 inch foot if you haven't got one, and invest in the one that goes with your machine, and it'll make a huge difference. Or use some tape. I often put a piece of tape on my machine. if the light is bad, particularly, I mean, it's lovely and bright, obviously in my room with the lights on, but under normal circumstances I don't have the lights on, and if the light is a little bit dull, then maybe you need a little extra help of a piece of tape. Okay, so we've put the 1, 2, 3, 4th piece on. We're now putting the last piece on, which is this one here, if we look on the overhead. And all we're doing is right sides together again. And because the autumn leaf template is shaped, we know we have to start stitching from that point. If you want to draw a line just to make sure you're straight, then just be aware that that line will be slightly out because of the width of the pen or pencil that you're using. So I would say do a scant 1/4 inch if you've drawn the line. So there we are. You can see how that looks, and we'll just open that seam up and give it a nice press. And you can see, because we've done this in a particular order, you'll see that the seams look different here. It doesn't matter, you've still spread the load. And if you look at it here, it also looks differently, where you've got the point coming up to here, but you haven't on this. And that's just because of the order that we've put these pieces in. Now you may want to do it a different way, because you might find that this is a good reference point. That seam is a good reference point for matching up the previous row. So you might want to do the same this side, because obviously this is stepped back a bit. And it's all about matching seams with patchwork. So if I offer that up to my piece, I'm just checking the pattern, make sure I'm doing it right. You can see, even with the overhead just as it is, that that's our next line. Now if you want to trim these pieces, then please feel free to trim them. It's a little bit early in the proceedings to start trimming too much, but you might feel comfortable doing that. So what I need to do now is try and make sure that I get all of these pieces lined up. So I tend to put a pin right where that seam join is, on that 1/4 inch mark. And I wriggle my pin around to make sure they're sitting parallel on top of each other. And try and aim for that. Try and keep those pins in there until the very last moment. Obviously you're not going to stitch over the pins. And again here. So hopefully by stitching that along there 1/4 inch, everything will be lined up and our seams will match. But if they're out by a wee bit, you know what, I'm not going to lose any sleep about it. If anybody says to you your points are out, they're not your friend. So we're just stitching along these 2 pieces now. Going to take my pin out. Just take that out. Keep my finger on there so it doesn't move, so hopefully it's fine. Sometimes it's how you feel on the day. It can be luck. But if you work slowly and carefully, press all your seams and just take your time, you should be fairly accurate. So we'll just do this last little bit here. No, this might need a little trim. Okay, so let's have a look. It's not too bad. It's out a little bit here, but I'm going to live with that, especially just for this demonstration. But you could unpick that if you were a purist. You'd probably unpick it and do it again, but we'll move on. And just open up that last remaining seam. Just get the tip of your iron in there. There we go. And you can, don't forget, you can set the seam if you want to. So let's just, you can see I just pat it down. If we do too much of that, sometimes we can disturb our stitching. Like here, I suspect that's what I did there. I'll just open that up again. And then if we flip it over, there's our piece of patchwork done, which I'm more than happy with. I might have to just trim that a little bit off there. I might as well do that now. So that's that bit done. The next pieces we're going to put, let me show you on the bag. We're going to put these pieces in here. So this is the top of the bag, here where my hands are, and then we're going to put these two side pieces on first, and then we're going to do the two bottom pieces here. Now all of this work here has been done with a 2.5-inch strip, so if you've got a jelly roll by Moda, or if you've got a design roll by any other designer, then use those, or cut your own with your most favourite fabric. But you need 3 different shades to create this central patchwork piece. You could, if you wanted to, do it all in one colour. I'm not going to tell you what to do. So let's get our strips. So we need two of the shorter lengths, which are these ones here. So we're attaching those on the side. Now of course if you want to, you can pin. And if you are out a little bit, we can see there, if you are out a little bit, we'll just trim those as we go. Sewing is all about enjoying the experience sometimes and not worrying too much about the end. So it's more about the journey, isn't it? Just be mindful of your open seams. Try and keep them open. Sometimes it's better to sew on the patchwork side so you can see your seams. So we're probably out maybe 1/8 of an inch, so I'm quite happy with that because I had trimmed this block a little bit. So again, just make sure those seams are laying flat. So we're doing right sides together. Just keeping those seams open. There we go. So there's our side pieces put on, and then of course this is how it's starting to look. Now even though we opened the seams here, I'm going to press those seams away from the patchwork. You can see that the seam already wants to do that, so we're just going to follow what it wants to do, and we'll press it now so it stays lovely and neat. So you can just push your iron and push that seam out. So pretty. I love blues. Blues are my favourite colour. Unless you didn't realise. Oh, I'm wearing blue. I wear blue quite a bit. I try to wear other colours as well, but blue is my favourite. And I've got my new blue mat out ready. So there's the side seams done, the side borders done. So now we have to put the top ones on. So top and bottom, okay. Right sides down. Just bring the machine in. So if you start off with your ends nice and square, then whatever happens at the other end, we can always trim a little bit. The better to trim than have the way of it being too short. Don't forget the first seam is facing out from your patchwork piece. So at the moment I'm using a 2.4, 2.5 stitch length. I'm using my regular sort of ivy thread because this is a light, lovely light, pretty blue fabric. I'm using denim, but the pattern has been written for canvas. Once I start stitching the denim or canvas, then I'll I'll increase the stitch length to 3 because it's going through thicknesses, and I'll change to a navy blue thread. Just taking my time, enjoying the process. super. Push the machine away, bring the ironing mat in. We'll just set those seams because they're nice long big seams, plus I think my fabric could do with a brace. Oh, it's so pretty. Okay, so now we can open that seam up, and again you're pushing it out. So these long edges are the top pieces of the patchwork. So pretty. I keep saying that because I'm really pleased with how it looks. Some things go together and they look lovely. Other things go together and they just tick your boxes. So now our patchwork has been completed, and I've already attached the top border, which is the canvas fabric, the denim fabric, whatever fabric you decide the whole bag should be in. So that's the back, the borders and the straps. So I've attached the top piece. Now you're going to attach the bottom piece. Now that is slightly wider. Let's look on the overhead. So that is slightly wider than the top, and you'll see that in the pattern. So you can see quite significantly that that is a lot deeper than the top. You can see if I pull it down. So if I attach the bottom piece, and then we've got two long side borders in the same fabric, because don't forget we're going to box the bottom of this bag. And all of the internal seams, we haven't discussed this yet, but all the internal seams are French seams, so it's really lovely and neat. So we'll pop this on. Stick to your 1/4 inch seam allowance. Now I'll just give that a little finger press, and also the accuracy of the cutting. But I'm not the most perfect cutter-upperer in the world. If you want to, I tend to err on the side of caution, so I tend to make things a little bit bigger and then cut back. Even if you're only adding on an inch or so, it just gives you a little bit of leeway. I only say this in case your seam allowances are a little scant, and then your pieces perhaps won't be big enough. But that's just down to experience. If you follow Kath's pattern as she's written it, you'll be fine. Okay, that's one long side piece put on, so you can see what that looks like. We're going to do this side now. So we're lining up those corners, making sure that your seam allowances on your previous pieces are facing into your work. Because this is a thicker fabric, you'll find that they won't want to point away from the patchwork, they'll want to point in. I think you'll see that for yourself when you start stitching it. The other thing is I'm using a denim that's actually a little bit stretchy. Now if you use a fabric that's like that, you might want to use a lightweight stabilizer to hold it in place, or you would perhaps use a walking foot to keep all your layers absolutely spot on. Okay, so I'm just going to give this a little press now. And again, these seams will only want to go where they want to go. Now that's up to you whether you want to open these seams up or keep them flat. You can see how my work looks. It looks perfectly happy laying that way. So that's how I'm going to keep it. Just pull that out slightly from your left hand, the other way around if you're right-handed, just to get the folds out on the other side. Flip it over so you can see that they will already want to lay that way. I'm just pulling it slightly so it opens up the seam, keeps it all flat. I don't want any puckering. We'll just trim that little piece off there. Okay. Right, let's move on to the next stage. Let's see what Kath says in her pattern. Let's see. So now we're going to cut our boxy bottom on this piece. So we're going to do it on the patchwork first. So now you could draw, let's make sure we get the right way around. So you're doing it on the wide border piece. I'm going to use a heat erasable pen. It doesn't matter too much whether you just use a regular pencil, and just mark in my 2.5 inch square. So let's get the right end. So that is our front piece now completed. So if I hold it up, you can see what it looks like. Looks fabulous, doesn't it? Really loving the blues. Let's just pop that down there. Okay, so now we're going to work on our handles. Like I said, they're quite long, so you may want to adjust them. And they're our simple way of making straps. Just folding into the middle and then folding again. Be aware of the thickness of the fabric. Make sure that your machine can take it. Some machines will be fine, other machines may struggle. I need you to find your own way with your machine. I can't sort of tell you what's best for you. I can offer you advice. My advice would be, if you find your fabric too thick, then use a webbing like we've done in Nailer, instead of double folding your fabric, because you're obviously going to be stitching through 4 layers of fabric. So again, you want to just be aware of it's really the motor of your machine and whether it's powerful enough to go through your fabrics. And don't forget to lengthen your stitch to 3. You've got to allow the machine needle to go in, back up again, make a really nice stitch through all of those layers. Doesn't need any special sort of needle. I'll move mine up now while I remember. Mine's a mechanical machine, it's not digital, it's perfectly fine. It is semi-industrial, but I like it because it's very quick. So just folding these in like we normally do when we're making bag handles. We've done this so many times. And then you're just stitching along both long edges. Now, although that doesn't look like it's pressed, it has got kind of like iron memory to it, or what you would normally say muscle memory. We can't say that, can we? But we can say iron memory. Come up with a new saying, we'll use it. Pressing memory. But it will remember, as long as you don't go over those folds again. And you don't need to go really mad with this. You don't really need to press these with any best press or anything like that. As long as you've got them folded nicely, layered on top of each other, you'll be fine. And of course you can, if you wanted to, you could fold these as you stitch, if you're confident enough. No reason why not. No rules. Okay, so just coming to the end here, and then we're ready to top stitch. Lovely. Okay, so now we're just going to stitch down those 2 long sides, quick sticks, while obviously being as neat as you can. Now, like I said, just do a little test run first with your machine, make sure it will go through. I would start about 1/8 of an inch from the raw edge. Oftentimes with these type of things, the the ends will go into the workings of the machine if you're not careful. I mean, you can use a leader and a follower if you find that to be useful. So just be confident. You might want to use quilter's tape to hold these layers together. You might want to use clips, pins. Just be confident. Now we'll go down the other side. As a flash, we've got one strap done. Now you'll notice how I hold my hands when I'm really working fast. I could go fast the second row stitches because it was the fold and there was nothing for me to keep my eye on. So I could speed up my machine and go down quite quickly. But you might want to take your time. Don't forget you've got a longer stitch, so it'll go more quickly. But like me, you're using dark denim on this or canvas. It doesn't show too much because of the darkness of it. If you do go a little bit wriggly, if you're feeling super brave, then go for a cream thread. I'm laughing because I'm thinking, would I really do that? Depends. I think if I had used my clips and clipped this really well and really pressed it so it was beautiful, maybe I'd risk a cream thread, but I know my limitations sometimes. So coming down the other side, so real quick, so you can see my left hand is holding my fabric, my right hand here is guiding the fabric and keeping it straight. That's all I'm doing. Nothing is being pushed or pulled. And we're done. Because this is slightly stretchy, you can see I've got a lovely twist to my straps, but that will press out. Okay, so that's our straps done. Let's see what Kath has got in store for us now. So we've done the top stitching, so we now need to mark on our front piece where we're going to place our straps. Let's have a look towards the centre. Right, so I need my piece again. Let's pop that, bring that back up. Got a nice long thread there. So I'll get my, I wonder if I've got a chalk pen. Yeah, I've got a chalk pen. And we just need to measure in. So just check the pattern. Now with a chalk pen, look, you can see how beautifully you can see that mark. There we go. So we're going to put one set of handles on this side. Let's just trim those threads away, and it's always better to stay stitch these in place. I'm sure Kath has said this in the pattern, and these ones I will pin. Use a nice strong pin. So again, place them, pin them. Let's just check, and it says baste both ends in place, so that's what we'll do. And start about a ½ inch away and finish ½ inch on the other side. Use your stiletto or your quick unpick if your stiletto has disappeared under your machine or somewhere else, just to hold everything in place. If you've pinned it, take your pin out before you get to it. Again, we're starting a ½ inch away. I'm holding it down with my stiletto, taking the pin out, going straight across. Snip threads if you need to. It's very difficult to see the dark threads on the darker fabric. There we go, I think that's all I need to do. So there's our 2 straps attached, or rather 1 strap attached on the front. So let's see what Kath needs us to do now. Sorry if I'm licking my finger. Okay, so on the lining piece we're going to cut our boxy bottom squares out. So like I say, I like to, and don't forget you've got a long side and a short side with this, so do make sure that you get the right size. So it's the shorter, it's only by a few inches, a shorter piece on the bottom. So let's just measure that. Yeah, we're fine. So I just get my pen and we'll do the measuring. Let's do it so I can actually see it. And like I say, I like to cut with my scissors. So just draw your square in. There we go. And then we're going to cut it out. It's different for me to be working from somebody else's pattern, especially for a gold pattern like this. It's a refreshing change for me. But if you've made 2 or 3 yourself, you don't need to perhaps refer to the instructions so much. You kind of know what the next stage is because you've done it 2 or 3 times. But I haven't made one. This is the first one I've made. Okay, so let's have a look. Take the back bag piece, cut out the squares for the front as the same as the front. That didn't make any sense, did it? So I'm taking the back piece now, which is the denim. Again, measure, make sure you've got the not so wide is the, let's start again. The long length is your bag length and the shorter is the width. Does that make sense? I'm going to use chalk and my ruler. Now don't forget to make sure that you, if you're using directional fabric, you're cutting the correct end. Just keep an eye on where you're cutting. Do another little sort of look at it. Don't cut anything until you're 100% sure. So we're cutting out our moxie bottoms. I actually find cutting the squares out of a bag like this much more accurate and easier than stitching and then folding it so you get the V's, so you get the folds, and then stitching diagonally across. I mean, it's fine to do it that way, and we've done that way lots, but I find it easier to cut the boxy bottoms out. Okay. So, and then we're going to place the back and front wrong sides together with the lining sandwiched in between. So let's get that done. Where's my piece? Here we go. Oh, I've got to put the straps on the other one. Maybe I'll do that now. Let's do that now. I'm cutting corners and I shouldn't be. But at least you're seeing it firsthand. Okay. So I'm measuring in from the top edge the correct amount that Kath has stated in the pattern. Make sure your straps are not twisted. I tend to put the double seam or the double edge, the double folded edge, to the middle, but you can have it facing to the outside if you prefer. We're just going to baste that in place. Again, you're going to use your seam ripper or your stiletto to hold that strap in place while you stitch. trim your threads. Again on the other side, start a 1/2 inch in. Use your stiletto. Okay, so we've put our handles on the bag at the back now. Could do with the press, couldn't it? It's been folded out for ages. Lovely. Been waiting just for the right project. And this is it. So now we need to stitch the whole bag together. Now this is going to feel a little odd because we're doing French seams. Now that means that we're going to be stitching the right sides facing out first. So normally you have right sides together, stitch, turn. This time we're going to do it the other way round. We're going to do wrong sides together, stitch and turn. Okay, and then we're going to stitch the seams again. So it's just bearing that in mind when you put your fabrics down on your desk, what the sort of sandwich looks like. So this is our back piece here that I've got in front of me. You can see there's the straps there, just about to see it. The wrong side is facing me. Okay, so it means that when I come to stitch, the right sides are facing out, which is correct. We then need to take our lining piece. Now, if you've got a piece of lining fabric that's double-sided, it really doesn't matter then how you place this down, as long as you place it correctly. In other words, the top edge is meeting up and the bottom edge is meeting up. So, but if you've got a fabric like me, where you've got a pattern one side, you can just see that, and a plain backing, it's obvious, you want to put that right side down to your wrong side. Okay, so that's right side down to your wrong side, and place that on the top like that. Okay, so let's just bring that in. I'll just show you a small section of it. So we've got wrong side of our back piece facing me. I've got the right side of my lining facing down, and then my front bag I'm going to have with it facing up. So in other words, all my if you think just of the bag, we've got wrong sides together, but you just need to remember that your lining needs to be right side facing down. If you just rewind, go over that bit again, you'll know exactly what I've done. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is pin all these 3 layers together, because we now need to make our French seams. So I've pinned all my pieces together. I've neatened, if I needed to, around all the edges just to make sure they all meet. What we're going to do now is stitch a 1/4 inch seam allowance down both long sides and just the bottom. So we're ignoring the top and we're ignoring the boxy corners. So we're going to stitch a 1/4 inch down both long sides and the bottom, and then we're going to trim away to 1/8 of an inch. So let's get the machine set up. Now I'm going to take my stitch length down to 2.5 again, and stitch my seam. I'm going to do a back stitch to start. Just make sure you are stitching through all 3 layers. So we're going through the back piece, the lining piece and the front piece. So as we come down to the boxy bottom, just do a little back stitch to secure it, turn your work, and then we're stitching along the bottom edge. Back stitch again, super fast. So this is where we start building up the layers. Now my denim is okay at a 2.5 level. When we turn through and we make our French seam, I'm going to increase my stitch length again. If you want to keep it on 3 through your whole project, that's absolutely fine. It's a really strong bag, and it's made strong because of the French seams. So now I've stitched all 3 sides, okay? So I'm going to trim them. So I get my rotary cutter, I get my long ruler, I'm going to trim them back to 1/8 of an inch. Now it's tricky seeing this on my denim, on the dark. Hopefully I haven't cut any of my stitches. I have to stand up to cut, I don't know about you. So just be careful that you're not cutting your stitches. Now if you don't cut back enough, some of these seams may show when you turn it through when you've made your French seam. So let's just cut this last piece, just be careful. If you do snag a stitch, just go over it again and strengthen it. And you can see just here that that moved, so I'm just going to get my scissors in and just trim. Make sure that blade is shut off. Okay. So now what we're going to do, now we've trimmed, that's stage 12 if you're following on the pattern. We're going to turn the bag through, press the seams well, and then we're going to stitch again. So we're going to stitch a 1/4 inch seam allowance again. Now I won't press, just to save a bit of time, but I'll finger press as I go along. So turn your bag so it's right sides facing out now. And it is a good point that Kath's made about pressing your seams. Just make sure, you can see mine want to roll, you can see how that looks. But I want you to be in charge and make sure that they stay nice and flat, no rolling. Give it a finger press if you can. It's difficult with this kind of little bit stretchy, as I said before, so I'll go as I stitch as I go along. Now don't forget, you want the lining to be facing out one side, and this is the back of the wrong side facing that side. So we'll do our French seams. I know it might feel a little bit odd because we've got that lining in there. The best suggestion I can make to make it a lot easier for you is to choose a lining that's double-sided. So a poly cotton maybe, or you can get quilting cottons that are, oh, I'm going to just increase my stitch length. Yes, poly cottons that are double-sided, and you'll be able to see them. And see what I mean. Have a little look. So that's one side. So let me hold it up so you can see. You can see the seam going down there. It's lovely because it's blue on the grey, so you can see it. So do the other side. Like I say, I would do as Kath has said and press this really well. And so it all lays flat. You can see what I'm doing. I'm kind of unrolling it, pushing that seam out. But you want it to be accurate. And the other thing, before I forget to tell you, is this is a really good time to get your walking foot out if you've got one. Don't be afraid of it. It's sometimes a little bit complicated to put onto your machine, but once you've put it on and used it, I think you'll realise what a bonus it is. That's the second side seam done. Now we're going to do the bottom seam. So roll those seams out. It's getting a little stuck on the denim. can see better on the pale side, we've stitched all 3 sides. So now we've got a beautiful French seam going down both long sides and across the bottom as well. So let's have a look. This is where we're going to box our bottoms again. So we're going to turn through so our right sides are facing out. So we're going to do another French seam. I think this is going to be a really useful bag. It's so pretty as well. Okay, so normal carry-on. You're going to pull open your corners, so where your corner has gone in, so it's kind of like, it's not a concave, but it might as well be because it's going in. You're pulling those out. You're making sure that your lining stays exactly where it should be, which is on the front piece of your bag. Now I would definitely nest your seams now, because now what's happening is we've got in some places probably, I don't know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 layers of fabric. So we don't want those to overlap. So nest those seams. And first of all, we're going to do our 1/4 inch seam allowance as we did before, straight across. Now, if your machine struggles to get through these layers, which it may do depending on what you're using, then please just do this wrong sides together, and let me just nest those seams again, just to see which way I've pushed them. Yeah. Just do this part and then finish off with a zigzag, or put them under your overlocker. Your overlocker should be able to take this quite easily. Overlockers are very strong machines, so you know, let them have a go. Try to nest your seams as best you can. Then we're going to, that's okay, it's not too bad, I've just caught a little bit there, but I'm going to carry on. So I'm trimming this down to about 1/8 of an inch again, just like we did before. So both corners, and we're trimming both down. It's quite chunky over those seams. There we go, beautiful. So then we're going to put it right sides in, wrong sides out, and we're going to do that that last seam, that 1/4 inch seam going across the corners. You really want to make sure that those corners are really poked out though. If you can see, that's what it looks like. So you're going straight across there with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Again, you might find it tricky with your machine, but I've given you an alternative. I'm going to use my stiletto to make sure my corners are out. Because we're sewing multiple layers, don't forget your stitch length, increase that, but also make sure that you don't stitch through all of those layers where that nesting is. So you really want a good 1/4 inch seam allowance. Just need to get past that bulk. Oops, went a little bit wriggly there. And it will just need a little bit of help. I did go a little bit wriggly. I will show you though. I don't mind showing you. But you might find it easier if you go this way. Try it that way rather than that way. Shouldn't make a lot of difference, but it's worth a try. So now just poke those other pieces out. Again, use your stiletto or your quick unpick to help you ease those corners out. And like I said, I would probably, might even go like 3/8 of an inch here, just to avoid that really sort of quite layered pieces here. I just don't want to stitch anywhere near where they are on top of each other, which is in the seam. You might want to use a humper jumper. I don't think I've got mine handy, but a hump jumper allows you to go over that seam a lot easier. We'll do that another day. But I'm just easing mine over. Make sure you do a lovely back stitch, so you can see what that looks like there. It's a tiny bit wriggly, but if you think about how many layers we're going through, I'm not surprised. I think I'd go wriggly if I had to go through all those layers. So there is our beautiful bag. So now all we've got to do is sort out the top. So make sure you keep your lining to the front all the time. Just check that, especially now. I mean, it should automatically go to the front, but just in case. So poke those corners out. Beautiful, really lovely, really lovely. So let's just see what Kath says in the pattern. So we're going to turn over the raw edge at the top by 1/4 of an inch. We're going to use our clips, then we're going to fold our handles over, and then we're going to fold it back up again. And I'll tell you what I'm going to do before I do anything. I'm going to baste my lining and my top fabric together so they're like one piece. I think that would be an excellent idea. So we're just going from one side seam across to the other on the front piece only. And what we're doing is we're joining our lining and our outer piece together. So we're going over our handles again. Just make sure they're lined up. And again, if you need to trim, I'm a great advocate of trimming, because we're not all equal, are we? Hurrah! So just come back, and then we're done. So if we look on the overhead now, let's do it. So we'll do it on the lining so you can see that a little bit more clearly. So you can see where I've just stitched, and that is nearly 1/4 of an inch in, and all we're going to do is turn that under. Now I haven't got my clips handy, but I can pin. So all I'm doing is bringing all those layers over. So of course I'm going to do my pins this way. That makes a lot more sense. So just go around the whole piece, turning your top edge in. Make sure your handles go in. You can see how the handles look now. So go around the whole piece. I'd be inclined to give this a press. Just be careful of this French seam when you come to it, when you're stitching. No need to worry about it now, but when you come to stitch this, if you need to jump over and finish by hand stitching, then that's what you must do. Because like I said before, and with the straps as well, to be honest, we're using multiple layers, we're using a different fabric to what we normally use, so I want you to be gentle on yourselves if it's not going quite according to plan. There's lots of different ways we can tackle these things. So just fold over. And you're folding the strap as well. In fact, it's going to come over, it's actually going to come over like that. So this is the first fold where we have it. I want you to kind of come in close. This is our first fold. So it's flat, so it's laying flat. And the next time we go round, because we'll do this one thing at a time so you can see. In fact, I pinned that slightly awkwardly, but let's just turn that. Like I say, there's a lot of bulk in these French seams now. So do you see the handle just sits flat? I think I was trying to fold mine over before. I wasn't thinking. So, oops. So you can see how that strap looks now, just straight and flat. And then when we come to do the second turn, and again, you give this a press so it sits nicely, then you're going to turn again. So take your pin out, turn again. and I really feel this needs clips. So I think I'll pop over to my other desk and get my clips. Okay, I've got my clips now, which is going to be much better, look. Much more sensible. And just do your double fold now. So when you come to the strap is currently sitting flat. It's going to be folded over, and then it's going to come back over the top like that. And if you have a little bit kind of extra, which I have at the moment, I'm happy about that because my fabric is thick. And I'm not going to try to get that to fold over a 1/4 inch on that little bit there. I think that for my fabric that would be almost impossible. So your double fold again, let's get a clip. So we're just working our way around, taking our pins out. Like I said, I would give that a nice press. With these pins, they've got a silicone edge to them, so you can press. So fold your strap, fold it back. And you can see what I'm doing with my clips. I'm clipping from one side to hold. And then I'm going on the other side. You can see how that looks. You might find another way of doing this. I did think that maybe if I made another one, I'd put a piece of binding, nice pretty piece of perhaps Liberty binding along this raw edge here to cover up the raw edges and to give a lovely border. I think that would be quite a nice option. That's something you could think about. It's always nice, I think, the first time to follow the pattern. First of all, it's respectful of the designer, I think. That's Gemma and Gath. And then when you've done that, to branch out and make your own design. So again, well, the only thing here you've got to watch is this French seam, and you might need to jump over that. So I think I will. And then I'll go in and hand stitch it or glue it. So we're nearly done. And obviously as you go round when you're stitching, you can straighten this up, make it super duper neat. Again, I'm just coming to the strap, so we'll go in one side and we'll go in, make sure they stay straight. That's not straight. There and there, and then we come back to the beginning. Okay, so you can see I've put clips in all the way around. So I'm going to start stitching it, and then I'll come back to you with it all pressed and finished so you can see what it looks like. Like I said, if you struggle over the seams, please jump over them. Do a little back stitch, cut your threads, jump over, start again. You're not going to get a prize for getting over those if you don't need to. So I'm going to start near the French seam. And you could do a double row of stitching here. So let's just get that a little bit neater. So it's a 1/4 inch, then it's 1/4 inch again. That's basically all you're doing. So I'm going to keep it on a long stitch and take it up to about 3.25 this time. And we'll start stitching and then I'll finish off. Use your stiletto when you need to, going over your straps, otherwise they might twist. Take your time. One strap done. So we're all completed. We've made our second Norah, isn't she gorgeous? Really lovely. Lots of top stitching. So I did 2 rows of top stitching on this top edge here to secure my straps in place so they don't flop down anywhere. So 2 rows of stitching, again, like I say, on this top edge, just to reiterate that. And yeah, we've got a beautiful, beautiful bag now, ready to go shopping. I'm really looking forward to meeting up with Kath and going shopping with her, maybe for Christmas. You can see Kath's version behind us there. I've just hung it there so you can just see it there. So this is Norah. It's just a lovely, lovely pattern to make. I think you're going to really enjoy it. Like I say, I would try lightweight denims, a lightweight canvas. You'll use your quilting cottons if you want to. I would stabilise quilting cottons if I was going to be doing this from that, because it gives it extra strength. That's what the bag's all about. Lovely, strong seams with the French seams there. Really fun to do if you've never done that before. Really makes a nice, neat finish. And of course, the great thing is, let me just turn this inside out. The great thing is, with all that patchwork we've done, let's just get my corners out. With all that patchwork we have done today, you can see, well, apart from a good press, it's actually is hidden. It's hidden by the lining. But just don't forget that sandwich I told you about, and that'll make sure you do it correctly. Otherwise, you'll have things inside out. But it's not too difficult to rectify if you do that. So there we are. So there's our Norah. I hope you make her. And in actual fact, I hope you make loads.